Hey, songwriters, welcome back to At-Home Songwriting. My name is Chad Shank, and if you're new here, I am a songwriting teacher, a songwriting instructor. I've been a songwriter for a long time. I've worked in commercial radio. I've had my own record label. I've done sync. I went to Berklee College of Music online. I teach for Berklee Online. Songwriting is my thing. And my whole goal with this channel is to help you write more professional songs in the comfort of your home. So today I wanted to focus on how to write songs better or how to write better songs. So we're going to first talk about what is holding you back. We're going to find out what is keeping you from writing better songs. And then I'm going to give you some tips on how you can focus on the various elements that go into songwriting so you can start to write better songs and the best songs that you have. So sit back, we're going to jump in and we're going to take a look at how to write songs better. First off, let's talk about what makes a song great. So, a great song is one that connects with listeners on an emotional level and it leaves a lasting impact. So, think back to the songs that really connect with you, right? Think back to those times where the song just seems to capture exactly what you're feeling. It captures your emotions. You see a little movie in your mind. It feels like you go somewhere else for 3 or 4 minutes. So, what's happening is that writer has connected with you through their emotions. They've connected to your emotions. So we're going to talk about how great songs connect with your listener, and it connects on an emotional level and leaves that impact on you. So let's first talk about what creates a song, and more importantly, what creates emotion in songs. So, when you think about songs, there's really four elements that you have to work with as a songwriter. There's lyrics, there's chords, there's the vocal melody, and there's the groove. So, all four of those elements are what you have to play with. They're the clay that you have to sculpt to create and communicate emotion for your listener. So when you think about creating emotion, you have to think about how do you use these various elements to make your listener feel something. So lyrics make your listener feel something by a few different ways. Lyrics do it through what you're actually saying. Lyrics also do it through rhythm, and they do it through sound. So, what do I mean by sound? So, sound is rhyme, right? So, syllables that are sonically related to each other. That can help create tension and release. It creates stability and instability within your songwriting. And as Pat Pattison says in his books and in his courses, he says motion creates emotion. So you have the ability to either meet your listeners' expectations or surprise them. And you don't always want to surprise them. I know some of you are like, I want to be different. I want to be unique. I want to break the rules. But the thing is your listener doesn't really want that. Your listener doesn't want to see how great of a songwriter you are. Your listener wants to feel the emotion of the song. So we're going to talk about how do you inject emotion into your lyrics. Also, chords. Chords are the spotlights. They are the lighting of your song. They're sort of the stage that your melody and your lyrics sit on. And they're so important when it comes to emotion because chords can color the rest of the song. So your chords job is not to be the song itself. You know, a lot of you think, well, if I want to write better songs, I just need to find better chords. But that's missing the point on what the job of the chords are doing. The chord is creating the lighting on the stage where your melody performs what the lyrics are saying. So the melody is really what the lyrics hang on. And I think that melody is one of the most important and most powerful pieces of your songs. And one of the best ways to improve your songwriting the fastest is to focus on writing stronger melodies. And then underneath all of that is the style and the groove. So, how are you playing the chords? What sort of genre are you playing in? Are you playing staccato? Are you playing legato? Are you on the beat? Are you off the beat? Groove really comes down to how do you make all of this move together? And the mixture of throwing all of these four elements into the pot is what creates what we call prosody. And prosody is how all of the elements work together to support the emotional intent of the song. So, as a writer, I want you to stop thinking, how do I write a song to impress somebody? I want you to think about how do you write a song to make somebody feel something. It doesn't matter about chasing trends. It doesn't matter about chasing what you think a song should be or how you want to impress somebody with your magical vocabulary or your goofy chord progressions. If it doesn't communicate something that is emotional for the listener, it won't work. So I want you to keep that in mind. So let's talk about what could be holding you back from writing better songs. So, first off, forcing the creative process and thinking that there is a right and wrong way to write songs. I think I hear a lot of my students say, I want to know if I'm doing this right. I want to know if I'm doing this right. I want to know what I'm doing wrong. First off, there's no such thing as right or wrong in songs. It comes down to, is it communicating the emotion effectively that you want to communicate? And I think that's something that takes a while to learn, and it took me a long time as a writer to learn. So I want to communicate this to you so you can avoid some of the mistakes that I've made over the years. But I want you to stop forcing that creative process and trying to make things work in a certain way. And I want you to focus on, how does this make my listener feel, or what emotion do my decisions communicate? Also, you could be holding back yourself, or you could be held back by overthinking and over analyzing. So, what I mean by this is, sometimes we try to be too wordy. Sometimes we try to be too poetic. We try to be um, too fancy with our rhythms, too fancy with our chords, um, trying to say something simple in a very complicated way, right? So a lot of us hold ourselves back because we're not just saying what we mean. We think that we have to write around a topic or write in a very abstract or metaphorical way, which abstract is not even the right definition of how I look at metaphor. There's other videos on this channel about metaphor, so if you haven't checked those out, definitely do that. But I want you to start thinking, are you complicating what could just be simple? Sometimes just saying things like they are, like you would be talking to a friend, is the best way to go. And also, if it's a common chord progression, use it. They work. They People are used to hearing them. They have certain emotions. So definitely don't overcomplicate things. Also, what could be holding you back is being scared to express your real, vulnerable emotions and situations. I think a lot of us get scared to share what we really think, what we really feel. We go through things that we would be scared to talk to people about. And I think the magic in great songwriting comes from being able to tap into those experiences that are 100% you. And learning how to be vulnerable takes time, but I think that's where your great songs live inside of you. Also, we get held back in our songwriting because we don't focus on one specific emotion or one specific idea in our songs. Most great songs are about one situation, they're about one emotion, and the whole song builds on that hook and that theme and that idea. So if you're trying to tell three stories in one, that could be holding your songs back because you have too much going on and it doesn't allow your listener to go deep. You're going too wide, right? So try to focus on one topic, one emotion, and one story. And a huge part of this is missing how lyrics and music play off of each other. So a lot of you will say, well, I only know three chords and they're the cowboy chords, right? The one, four, and the five. Um, but you have to remember that your melody and the lyrics playing off of the chords and how that mix of everything works together is so important. You want to make sure that your music is communicating the emotion that you want your lyrics to communicate. So I'll say that again. You want your music to communicate the emotion that you want your lyrics to communicate because emotion lives in the music. The emotion doesn't come from the lyric. The logical piece, the story comes from the lyric, but the feeling, the heart of your song lives in what's happening musically. So we're going to talk about one of the ways that you can make sure that you're focusing on the right emotions in your music is to start with the music, start with the feel. Feel equals emotion, right? So get your music communicating and feeling like you want your lyric to feel, and then you will have a stronger song. Also, a lot of us are not patient with ourselves. Be patient with this process. Songwriting is a skill, it's a craft. It takes a long time to get to where we want to go. And where you are today is not where you're going to end up. So I encourage you to give yourself peace, patience, kindness. Know that what you're writing now is just practice for the best songs that are yet to come, and use all of the songs that you write as a learning experience. And don't get so caught up on trying to be so perfect because perfection does not exist. So, what then makes a song great? We talked about great songs connecting with listeners, but what really makes a song great? Well, melody is crucial in creating a memorable and effective song. People sing and remember the melody more than they remember the lyric. And as I mentioned before, the music is where the emotion lives in your song. The emotion is carried within the musical part, and the lyrics tell the story. So, really focusing and learning how to create effective melodies is, I believe, one of the best and most effective ways to improve your songwriting the fastest. I see a lot of writers that have great ideas, they have a lot of great lyrical hooks, and their melodies, not so much. So, try to focus on melody, and I'll give you some tips coming up. Also, great songwriters pay attention to where that melody is placed within the song structure and how it interacts with the chord progression and the groove. So, what do I mean by this? What I mean is thinking about, is your melody starting on the downbeat? Is it starting after the downbeat? Is it starting before the downbeat? Is your melody on the beat? Is it syncopated? Those things, all of those choices create a different emotion. And again, it all comes down to making decisions on emotion. So thinking about where your melody starts and how it's placed in the groove can make a huge impact on the emotion and the effectiveness of your song. Also, a great song paints pictures with lyrics. This allows your listener to visualize the story and connect inside of their own memories. So when you use imagery, when you use sense-based language, your words will trigger a memory or an image in your listener's mind. And when that happens, it helps them connect emotionally or subconsciously make a decision if they connect emotionally with your song or not. So painting word pictures and using imagery can be very important. Also, the most important aspect of the lyrics is conveying the songwriter's true feelings and connecting with the listeners on an emotional level. This simply comes down to, do they believe it? And does the song sound true? It doesn't have to be factual, right? Like it doesn't have to be completely autobiographical to be true. You know, you've heard the saying three chords and the truth. That's what this means. You want to be vulnerable enough and you want to tell enough of your story and convey enough of your true feelings to connect with your listeners on that emotional level. And I believe that when you hear people say, write what you know, it's not about actual events in your life. It's writing about emotions that you felt, and it's emotions that are true to you. Because if you felt them, there's 100% chance that somebody else out there has felt them too. And finally, prosody, the seamless blend of the words and music, is a mark of great songwriting. So, what does prosody mean? I know you've heard me say it a million times. Basically, it's how all of the elements, the lyrics, the melody, the chords, the groove, how do all of those ingredients mix together to communicate one concentrated emotion? One of my mentors and teachers, Andrea Stolpe, has said that great songs have a certain level of emotional concentration, and that happens from the lyrics communicating the emotion. It happens from the melody communicating the emotion, the chords communicating the emotion, and then the groove also communicating the emotion. And a big part of groove is tempo. Don't forget about tempo. So, how can you then make your melodies stronger? So, I already said melodies are one of the most important pieces of a song, and it's one of the ways that you can improve your songwriting most effectively and fastest. So, how do you make your melodies stronger? Well, the first is start by focusing on simple 3 to 6 note motifs. And when I say motif, I mean just a simple 3 to 6 note pattern, like a melodic phrase, right? It's just a simple little melody line. 3 to 6 notes is a great place to start because that way you don't overthink it. Obviously, there are longer melodic phrases, and I know some of you will come at me in the comments and say that, 3 to 6, like blah, 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 blah. But this is a place to start, okay? Because we're practicing. So, step one is come up with a 3 to 6 note melodic line. So we'll call that line A, okay? So make a little melodic pattern that's easy to sing, it's memorable, and you can remember it, right? So that's your A. The next step is to do that same thing, but I want you to create a second motif that contrasts from your first. And what I mean by contrast is change the number of notes, change the rhythm of the notes, change the pitch range of the notes. Make your second line sound different and contrast to your first line. So now you've created an A motif and you've created a B motif, right? So the next step is to use a mix of repetition and variation to create a pattern with your two motifs. So what do I mean by this? So think about rhyme scheme, right? So a lot of times you have A, B, A, B as a rhyme scheme. That can also be applied to the concept of melodic structure. So you've got A and B, you've got your first motif, you've got your second motif. So how do you use these two to create different patterns? Well, like I said, think of this like rhyme schemes. So look at these common melodic patterns, and these are also common rhyme schemes. Many times in effective songs, lines that rhyme have the same melody. So I'll say that again. Lines that rhyme many times will have the same melody. So now that you have your two distinct motifs, your two distinct melodic phrases, sing them or play them in these patterns. So you could do A A B B, you could do a A B A B, You could do an A, B, B, A. You could do an A, B, A. You could do two four-line sections where it's A, B, A, B. There's other combinations that you could do as well. Maybe it's A, B, B, A, B, B, or B, A, B, A, or A, B, A, B. You can play around with it, but the idea is that once you have those motifs, once you have those memorable pieces, you can rearrange them into these different patterns. And the key here is each pattern is going to have its own emotional feel. So you get to decide as the songwriter what feels the best, what communicates the emotion the way that you want it to, right? So you get to try out these different patterns and see what works best for you and your song. I'm telling you that if there's anything that you practice from this video, this will help you improve your songwriting so quickly because melody is more powerful than you think it is. Melody is king when it comes to songwriting. And a lot of hit songwriters will tell you that. Billy Joel, Max Martin, Ryan Tedder, Charlie Puth, Gordon Lightfoot wrote melody before he wrote lyrics. So there's a lot of people out there that start with an effective melody. And one of the ways to do this is by taking your motifs and putting them into these patterns. So again, remember, many times the lines that rhyme will have the same melodic patterns. And I encourage you to go listen to some of your favorite songs and analyze them. There's going to be times where the rhyme scheme and the melodic scheme does not match, but I guarantee you that you will find that it probably matches more than not. So I want to take a quick second here. And as we're going through this, if you're looking for a great way to learn how to use rhyme more effectively, go to my website at athomesongwritingcourses.com. There is a free course. It's a video course on how to use rhyme as a tool, not a necessity. So there's a lot of concepts in here on how you can use rhyme to communicate emotion. It's 100% free. You can just register and then you can watch the video and learn how rhyme is such a powerful tool. So go to athomesongwritingcourses.com. So let's talk about now lyrics. So going back to talking about what lyrics do. So lyrics are where you are giving your listener information. You're giving them the imagery on a logical level. So your music is hitting the heart. The music is communicating the feel, the emotion. So how do you then paint pictures with your lyrics? Well, number one, I've said this a lot. Other people say it all the time. Show, don't tell. Instead of directly stating emotions or facts, be sure to use vivid descriptions and sensory details to let your listeners experience the scene or the situation. And how do you show? Well, you engage the senses. So in order to create immersive imagery, you want to appeal to sight, sound, touch, taste, smell. Describe the textures, the colors, the aromas, the sounds, even the taste of the elements within your song. So what do you write from your senses about? You can write about the who, so you can sense write about the characters. You can sense write about the location, the where people are. You can also do the time frame. Is it morning? Is it afternoon? Is it right after a breakup? Is it right after you met someone? Is it after dinner? Is it before school? All of those, the who, the when, and the where, are great places to write from your senses because it gives you tons of great sense-based detail that will connect with your listeners. Also, something that I don't hear a lot of people talk about is using action verbs and specific nouns. Nouns and verbs are where the message lives and in your lyric. So vivid verbs and precise nouns bring your lyrics to life. So instead of generic verbs like walk, consider like tiptoe, slither, limp. Those all convey specific elements and movements and emotions Also, nouns that are specific can be evocative, like faded blue Mustang or cracked coffee mug. Those create a strong visual impact. And the more specific you are, the more universal your lyrics will become. So if you think that writing vague and waspy, or wistful, like abstract writing is how you connect with more people, it's kind of it's a catch, but the more specific you are, the more emotional and the more universal your lyrics are. So then how do you become more vulnerable in your songwriting? So, I mentioned you want to have a strong melody, you want to reach your listeners lyrically, and then I also told you you need to be vulnerable and you need to be open to sharing your emotions and your experience. So, how do you get more vulnerable? Well, first is use simple, direct language that reflects how you actually speak and feel. So, don't try to sound overly poetic. The rawness of your emotions is what translates into relatable lyrics that are going to connect with your listener on a deeper level. So, sometimes just writing what you feel, exactly how you feel it, is the best way to do it. Also, focus on the pure expression of your feelings and the story that you want to tell. So, what do I mean by this? It sounds like the last one. Well, what I mean by this is don't worry about is my song a hit or is my song going to impress or please others. Trust that your perspective and your experience is valuable and worthy of being shared. So I don't want you to write it because you think it's going to connect with people or you think it's going to be successful. I want you to write it because you want to share an emotion and you want your listener to feel an emotion. And finally, we've talked about it before, but again, it comes up all the time because I'm telling you, all of you who are trying to avoid this sense writing, you're missing out. So write from your senses. One of the most effective ways to access your vulnerability is through your own sense memories. So sensory writing, sometimes it's known as object writing. Andrea Stolpe calls it destination writing. It encourages you to describe your experiences with vivid detail through all five senses and movement, and your sense memories will translate to the sense memories of your listener. And again, I know some of you are like, I've heard it before. I don't want to do it. I don't get it. Focus on learning how to object write and sense write and free write, because I tell you, if you do that on a regular basis, you will come up with some of the best ideas, some of the most vivid and emotional ideas by focusing on the senses. Because when you hear about sensual experiences, we're talking about the senses, and we want our listeners to have an emotional experience. And how do you connect with people is through the senses. So, capturing your real feelings in both your lyrics and music takes a lot of practice and it takes a lot of patience. I'll say that again. So, capturing your real feelings in both lyrics and music takes a ton of practice and a ton of patience. So, I don't want you to beat yourself up if you start writing songs and you're like, oh, I don't like it. I don't feel it. That's okay. Get feedback from others on where they think you might be able to improve. And also pay attention to parts that bug you and try to figure out why do they bug you. Is it actually the lyric? Is it actually what you're saying? Many times it's not even the words, it's just how they're set on a melody or how the structure is. So before you throw away your lyrics, experiment with the structure, the melodic schemes. All of this takes a lot of practice and a lot of patience. Think about it like a photographer, right? When a photographer goes out on the street or they go to a session, they take hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures, and then they go through and they pick the ones that they like the most, the ones that have an emotion to them. That's the craft of songwriting. except over years, we write thousands of songs. And eventually, some of those are going to be the gems, right? And the fun about songwriting is the joy is in the journey and the joy is in the process because we can try our hardest to make a song work and we can do everything quote unquote right, which there's no such thing, but sometimes songs just don't land. And sometimes it's a mystery and sometimes it just seems like it comes out of nowhere, but I will tell you the songs that work only come because you've done the work on the previous songs. Pat Pattison would say that write crap songs because crap makes the best fertilizer for the good ones. So if you're looking to connect with other songwriters, get feedback, spend more time with me, meet on a weekly basis, have writing assignments, writing exercises, learn how to connect with melody, lyrics, chords, go to At-Home Songwriting courses and check out my pro writer group. So it's called a pro writer group because I want to help you write like a pro at home. It doesn't mean that you have to be at a pro level, but it's a paid membership where we meet every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central, and we get together and talk about various topics, and we do exercises and we give each other feedback. I give you feedback on your songs that you upload. It's a great way to connect with others, have some accountability, and get some education. So if you like this video, hit subscribe, hit like, hit the bell so you know when I'm posting again. And I will see you in one of these videos where you can continue the journey into your craft of songwriting.